great salesperson can learn agency life. They can learn SEO. They can learn how to talk SEO really quickly. You cannot spend your time training them how to do sales. And when they have to be trained on how to do sales, you slow down everything else. So if they know how to sell, a good person can take anything and within 14 days be ready to go. And that's been my experience with every good salesperson we've ever hired. 14 days or less, they're making their first sale, and it's seamless.
Welcome to the Deep Specialization Podcast, the show where we blend focus, strategy, and client intimacy in order to scale and simplify our businesses and our lives. I'm your host, Quinn. Let's jump into the show. Welcome back to the Deep Specialization Podcast. Today, my guest is Travis Weathers. He is the founder and CEO of Rotate Digital, an agency specializing in helping moving companies grow revenue through strategic SEO. Today, we're going to talk about his deep specialization journey, how he grew his agency to over $3 million in revenue, and we're going to get into a ton of tactics around selling, building a sales team, and more as relates to agencies and a vertical market. Looking forward to diving in. Travis, welcome to the Deep Specialization Show.
Man, I appreciate it, Corey. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk, dialogue, and dive in and be vulnerable and transparent. Because I think we were just talking about how it's just it's a fugazi out there in agency space. So I'd love to be able to be a little bit of a light of transparency.
I think that would be a breath of fresh air, I should say, for the audience. So before we do, if you're tuning in on YouTube, I have to comment on this killer backdrop. What is that behind you?
It's a beautiful airplane. So I started this agency to pay for flight school because I wanted to be a pilot. And so long story short, we won't go into too much of it, but I started flying, started this agency to pay for it. And as I grew in this agency, my love for flying grew. And eventually I chose, instead of becoming a commercial pilot, although I am a commercial pilot, I'm a flight instructor. Like I could go work at the airlines. I could work as a mechanic, as a pilot. Although I could do that. And that's what the original dream was. I fell in love with business while I did this. So my friend one time told me, dude, stop doing that, be home with your family and buy a plane. And so this is, 7 years in the making. And so I've got a plane behind me. I'm in my hangar in Quinn Creek. So
I'd love to dig in a little bit about that origin story. So what was happening in your life 7 years ago? You were interested in becoming a pilot. You started the agency to fund the pilot, I'm sure the flight school and whatnot. What was happening in your life at that time and what led you to doing this?
Yeah, so I was going to school to be a mechanic for aviation. I at one point wanted to go overseas and do humanitarian flying, so you had to learn how to fix airplanes and stuff. And so I had a kid. I think I had a second one on the way. And basically, what happened was I saw this is back in the day, Facebook ads, right? I saw a Sam Ovens Facebook ad, and oh my goodness, that it hit me right to the spot. I had a marketing. I was doing like 12 different people, 12 different industries doing marketing, making like $200 per client. And so the Sam Ovens ad got me, and I bought the course. It was like $7,500, and it was a pretty good portion of everything I had in the bank account. I probably had 15 grand left. And I called my wife. I was like, so I just bought this course. So I had to make it happen. And so that's kind of how I got started. I had one kid. Now I have 3 kids, and we were just going. I was going to school full time, doing this at night, and just doing that day by day all the way through. And then to a point where when I was a flight instructor, I would take sales calls on my lunch break. Right before I would get onto a plane, I would take a sales call. I remember closing a guy on a sales call, and I was getting my credit card payment and I was running late. So I told the guy, I was like, I'll just pay for your flight. Like, I'm going to be late. And I got my credit card collected and then got to the airplane, and we took off and went flying. So that was kind of a little bit of what was going on and kind of how we got there.
So I actually went through Sam's program as well. I thought it was great. I thought it was really, really powerful. I did that after I left Scorpion. I was looking for a lot of different, going through a lot of different trainings. That was one of the ones that I went through. It was really good.
So good.
So yeah,
cut through so much BS, and there was a lot there though, but it was great.
Yeah, a lot of content, but I'm an alumni as well. So quick question. So you were working as a flight mechanic as well as a flight instructor at this time?
I was going to school for flight mechanic while I was flying and getting my commercial certificate, getting my flight instructor rating. Yeah.
And you were running this agency, the fledgling agency, but you were starting to do that.
Yeah, and then I was running the agency during all that. I mean, I remember being in school, being in like my, power plant engine, school, and trying to type up an email to a client, and I probably
And
shouldn't
so
say
you
that
would
too out loud.
manage, yeah. So you would manage that sort of moonlight. Like was it you who was doing the work, or did you outsource it to a consultant? Or
So it's funny, and I actually think it's what has made it helpful for me today in where I was at. I came from a sales background, so I used to sell software, Bible software specifically, and so I knew sales. And when I bought Sam Ovens' course, it combined when I knew sales, it combined with like business marketing. And then I was like, what do I sell? And someone told me about SEO because it was a recurring thing. I remember selling and going like, if I sell, I want to sell a recurring product or service. And so what ended up happening is I learned enough about SEO to be dangerous, I would say, more importantly, dangerous when it comes to selling on the phone. And ever since my very first SEO sale, I outsourced it for the first 10 clients. And then I realized a lot of people just check the box on SEO. So I ended up hiring somebody, bringing them in house. And my only goal was no matter what we do, make sure we make an impact in the client's business. Like we win in SEO and they win in sales. And so that's kind of basically, I never, I'm not a Damon Burton. I'm not the expert in SEO. I know how to
yeah,
sell SEO really well, and I built my team around it. So I think it allowed me to go faster in some sense because I didn't know SEO to be able to execute
sure.
on it. I had to trust people through that process.
You knew enough to be dangerous to be able to talk shop. Most buyers back then, certainly it's still true today, but was probably not did not understand SEO at a level of depth that required you to have to go toe to toe type of thing.
No, I would argue even now, at least with my clients, you don't, but there's a lot more education around it than there was 7 years ago.
So when did you shift from kind of moonlighting to full time? Like what was happening in the agency that told you like, yes, okay, this is actually something that's going to be more significant for my life?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it was a slow transition. There was never like it was always like it's going to make me money and then I'm going to continue growing that money making business. And so I continued growing it. And I think ultimately it was the conversation with my friend where he was like, hey, you're either going to go down the track of being a commercial pilot, you'll make 200 grand in 7 years, a year, which again, great money. I'm not poo
Sure.
pooing that. But he said, but also you're going to miss your family. You're going to be gone a lot. He's like, but your business is doing so well. What if you just went all in there, bought
Yeah.
your own plane and went all in? You don't know where it could go. And so that conversation was probably the one of the things that kind of tipped the domino to go, you know what? I'm going to just go all in on this business. And at this point, I probably had maybe 20 clients or so. And so I then probably within 4 months of that decision, quit as a flight instructor and then went all in on the business.
Yeah. And were the 20 clients all paying you $200 a month?
No, at this point I had gotten a little smarter. I had moved to like $1,000 a month. So I
Okay.
had been
All right.
I've been moving the right direction. Every
Okay.
call it was upping the price. Every call I was,
Yep.
making a little bit more expensive. So, and by this time I had basically focused on one niche, followed the Sam Ovens course, followed the
Yep.
program, said, let's focus on one niche. I randomly chose the moving industry because I had a buddy who I did really well with. He's like, you've done so well with me, randomly chose that industry and just blindly went all in on it. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't do any analysis or market research. I just went and just did
And 300 clients now later, I think it was probably a good choice looking back, would you
it.
say?
I think it was a great choice. COVID really
Yeah.
helped. And you
Yeah.
could say I got lucky in the sense that COVID kind of
Yeah.
expedited the home service niche. But I loved it because we are the biggest now in the niche. And so when I started, we were not the biggest. And so I like it because it was cool to look back. Like current Travis looks back and goes, I remember sitting down. There was a guy named Louis Massaro. He was like the guru speaking about the moving industry. And Sam Ovens'
Yeah.
course said, you have to be the person that knows the industry the most. And I remember sitting there going, I will never be the guy that like knows moving so well where I can speak. And you look back and it's like just by focusing on being SEO, not even focusing on being the guy, just
Yeah.
focusing on delivering a good SEO product. I eventually, last year I spoke at like 15 moving conferences. So it's kind of cool to look back and see that. Challenge your beliefs, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I love that. And having clarity on what success looks like also, I think is also really smart. What would you say? So you went from being more of a generalist, let's call it, to being a specialist in the moving industry. And what was that like transitioning? Like, was it, did you rebrand the website? Did you fire all your non moving clients? Like, how did that exactly work?
Yeah, all 8 of my non-moving clients, I eventually did let go except for 2. There was a Italian restaurant, which I still have today. Shout
Nice.
out to Floridino's. And then there was a sandwich shop that I kept as well because it was the same owner. And that was really it. I eventually transitioned all of the 8 or 10 clients that were with me at that point. And then, yeah, I remember it was December of 2018 and I was trying to sell a course because Sam Ovens was like, sell the course, right? I was trying to sell
Yeah.
the course, couldn't sell it. And everybody was asking, do you do SEO? Do you do digital marketing? Do you do SEO? No, no, no. I got a course on how to do it. And I remember one day just going, yeah, we do SEO. And I remember him going, how much is it? And I was like, it's $1,000 a month. He's like, great. How can I sign up? And I was like, okay. So I took the credit card payment. And that's when I was like, I got to figure out SEO. I got to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And so that was it.
So that interestingly reminds me of a time at Scorpion where we were, for a period of time, we got this fever in the company, which was all about building SaaS, building software. We just raised a bunch of money and it was a season, but the fever has passed. But during that time, it was very clear that, hey, one way we're going to scale this business is by building do-it-yourself software for movers that maybe couldn't, it wouldn't be movers, but let's call them attorneys or plumbers
Yeah.
or whatnot that couldn't afford to hire us one-to-one, our traditional service, but they can get the benefit of working with us by using our software. And so without really doing a lot of market research, a lot of software was written under
Oh,
the
yeah.
assumption,
And it's expensive.
yeah, and under the assumption that plumbers would love to log into our little interface and manage their PPC campaigns and their website and so on and so forth. And we
How did
laugh
that
because we
end up?
know,
Yeah.
yeah,
How did
yeah, we
that
know
end up?
because exactly the fact that they didn't sign into our free analytics tool that our paid clients had as a benefit, like no one logged into that. That should have been a signal that that wasn't something that they were particularly interested in. So yeah, so I know the do it yourself versus done for you type of dynamic, especially in the blue collar world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't realize that, but yeah, when it hit and I kept
Yeah,
hearing that, it was like, all right, follow where they're talking about.
right. Follow the dollars, follow the
Follow the
demand. Let's
dollars.
call it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And going forward, once you sort of began to get that sort of feedback from the market and that there was an opportunity to help them out, and within the vertical of the moving vertical, did you just start saying no to any non-vertical clients, or how did that evolve? Like, at what point did you become really focused from a sales perspective?
Yeah, I would say transparently, it probably took me like 12 months to like
Yeah,
really start saying no. I mean,
yeah,
I recall taking on a cabinet client within a few months from that time. I remember taking on there's another industry, I can't remember what it was, but and what ended up happening is I took them on and it was just a realization of it's completely different. Like I knew how to talk to the moving companies on the sales calls. I knew their industry again enough, right? I had a journal that I would have of every single sales call, how I felt emotionally afterwards, how it ended up. And you can look at that and you can see a little like cabinet call. And so we ended up selling them and it didn't end well, obviously. And
yeah,
it just felt
yeah,
like it was wasted. At the time I needed the money, right? I don't want to poo
sure,
poo the fact that like that
yeah,
$1,000 was so worth it, right? But
right,
in one sense, smart Travis now would look back and be like, don't take the call, keep focusing. But it
don't get
but
distracted.
but we do it. I mean, even
Yeah,
today, I keep playing with the idea of going into another industry. And I
sure,
think there's something just human nature. We want something new. And I have to constantly
yeah,
fight it of like, I just created an ad for roofers like 2 months ago. And yet I sit here and somebody would ask me, where's the greatest amount of money that you can get in your business? Like, where can you get it? What's the lowest hanging fruit? And it's like, I have more things I can do for the moving industry.
that's
And
right.
yet I still record the video about,
Yeah,
roofing marketing.
yeah, and that is usually the case. I found just from my own experience, once you have a certain market penetration, let's say there's 10,000 movers in the US, once you get to 3% or 5% of that market, that's when you probably have enough momentum that you as the founder can say, oh, let's start building a second vertical. The trick is, this is where people get caught, is they take the current resources managing the moving clients and they have them also manage the roofing clients or whomever. And that's
Yeah.
where you fall down. You actually
Yeah.
have to start a separate business unit, separate resources. It's expensive.
Expensive.
Yeah. But you build up the same expertise and really the positioning around the vertical, specialization when you do it that way.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you could have told me that like 3 months ago. You would have
Yeah.
saved me a little bit more money.
Where was I?
Where were you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's talk.
I see it.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The impact of the specialization as it relates to being able to be more of the consultant, kind of an expert. Like, what impact does that have in a sales context?
Feel like it's a baited question because it's like it's everything. Like it's the friends that they hang out with who work with me who end up like referring me. Like it's just
Yeah,
there's so many benefits. I tell people all the time, I would argue, take any one of your agencies that you have, get on a sales call with a moving company owner. I will walk circles around you on the sales call because I know the people to bring up. I know the CRMs. I know the integrations with the CRMs. I know the owners of the CRMs. I know the owners of the people that are in your group. I know the owners of the people in your state association. I know when your state association it will be. I know when I'm going to go to that. I was there last year. I'll be there this year. I know Tom, I know Ryan. I know, and it endlessly goes. And I
yeah,
just it's really beautiful. I'm so grateful I was shared on this idea because it really does go with the only good bad fallback is that you have to then do a good job because the moment your reputation gets ruined, it
it's a
starts
small
to
world,
spread. Oh,
right?
it's
Yeah,
horrible. Yeah.
yeah. What are some other negatives that exist as a result of running this play?
In the moving industry, they are one of the lowest profitable home service businesses. And so that makes it challenging for us. They are very seasonal. Wintertime is wintertime. It's bad. Summertime, it's amazing. So you've got no, at least in the moving industry, and I know you're talking about just specialization in general, but in the moving industry, there is no requirement, license, certification to get into it. And so
Yeah,
it opens the market to just a different realm where like plumbers, you have to have some certification. And so it's harder to
right.
get into it. You're going to have a different kind of group of people. So some of the negatives, right? Your reputation is probably one of the biggest negatives. The other negative is your team. In my experience, at least my team, they desire for another niche.
Yeah,
They're
right.
writing the same website. They're doing the same thing.
Yeah,
And they ask for it. And it's so hard because I want them to love Rotate Digital and they do, but that's that thing that they're like, again, another moving industry, another thing, it's the same
yeah.
stuff. So that's
How do
probably
you
a
how do
big
you
downside.
do you give them like pet projects, or how do you satiate that need?
Give them a little money, say, shh, 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 shh. No,
It's all good.
yeah, it's quiet. I think there's two things. I have to keep reminding them the vision. I have to keep reminding them that for 6 years, we've grown year over year. We've gone into 2 years of massive recession in the moving industry, and yet Rotate Digital continues to grow profit and revenue. Like you don't get that in general agencies. And so I have to remind them the benefits that come with specialization of one niche is like our job is a lot more secure. We make a bigger impact. We make a bigger impact, which means we can create more dollars, which means we create more talk, which means we make more money. And so I think that is one of the big things is just reminding them about the value of like, yeah, there's some downsides and yeah, you may get bored, but here is that value compared if you were to go to another industry that has multitude of industries. And then I would say the second thing is every once in a while, now that we're kind of a little bit more established, we will take on a random client every here and there. And so we
Sure.
just took on like a lawyer probably 2 months ago. And honestly, it's been so difficult. But the people that are working on it, they're like, honestly, it's kind of a breath of fresh air,
Right. It's a new
fresh air. Yeah.
Yeah, that's new problems, right?
Yeah.
They're solving new
New
problems.
problems. They get excited
Yeah,
about it. So
right.
yeah.
So you mentioned the vision, and you're helping them to stay aligned and seeing the vision of how you're making big impact. Do they get to participate in that sort of that growth of Rotate? Like how does that show up for them?
That's a great question. So, in terms of our team members, every team member gets, depending, I think it's a 6% annual raise every year
Nice.
to be a part of Rotate Digital. And we have a I think we're a little bit more of a we have a higher level of excellence than I'd say the general. And I'm not saying like, look at us. It's just we really try to push that. So to be around for multiple years is a win, right? And so we like to
Right.
incentivize them on that. Additionally, we give unlimited PTO, which ultimately we all know means just take time off and be respectful of time off. It doesn't mean you can have unlimited. And then the final thing is they do get to participate in it. We just launched in January profit sharing for the entire team. And so that has
Interesting.
been so it's been something that's been in the making for like 6 months of conversation, studying, talking to different people. January, we launched it, and we've got a kind of a whole standard of like minimum targets, how we share, and we can share that. But one of the things that it's done is as we grow, as we win when it comes to profit, they get to experience part of those wins. And so right now, looking at where we're going and how well we're doing it roughly adds another 10 to 12% to their salary this year if we continue hitting where we're going, which is a great win because now when we
Sure.
get to celebrate as a company, they get to celebrate. So they do
That's right.
participate in it.
That's great. Incentives are aligned. I love that. So you're in a competitive space. Like there's no
Very
vertical or niche or any industry that hasn't been thoroughly exploited by upstarts and whatnot. How do you differentiate and position yourself in this crowded market?
great question. I would say because anytime you're a marketing agency, you're in a crowded niche. Anytime you're a marketing agency, you sound the same as every single other agency out there. Ultimately, to the eyes
Yeah.
of the people that are buying. So one way to stand out is we specialize. We are only in the moving industry. The other way is I think we really are pushing in the last year and a half. We've really pushed on staying ahead of the market. What do people need? Where are we going with it? So we provide SEO, but the things that we're now doing is apparently I should have done it beforehand is we're now doing call tracking. We're doing call tracking where we can align. We basically do a lot of their CRM work. We analyze every
Right.
call. We go look
So
into their
smart.
CRM. Yeah, so it's these small things that we're ahead of the game. We're doing ubiquitous UTMs where we push the UTMs throughout the pages, no matter where they go and how many pages they click on. We were the first in our industry to do that, and so we're always setting the standard. Now the companies are following us on what we do, but we're always setting the kind of the next thing. And so I think that really does set us apart. Is we are pushing the limit of what an agency can provide, at least in the moving industry. We're pushing that limit in this space.
That's awesome. And you mentioned you go to a lot of the events, you're kind of visible in the marketplace, and that obviously makes a big impact as well. How do you where do new clients come from? Like how do they find you and where do you attract them from?
I wish I could tell you it's because we have this phenomenal outbound cold calling traffic campaign. I wish I could tell you, man, our Facebook ads, they just rock it, and we're so good at Facebook ads. Unfortunately, it feels like it's the boring stuff. Where do they come from? They come from other referrals. A lot of people are coming from conferences. I
Yeah.
didn't go to conferences for a few reasons. One of them is I was too busy and I had excuses for it. Started going to conferences massively, at least in our industry, massive game changer because now you're a real human behind the calling and the emailing and everything. So conferences and then speaking at conferences is like that next lever point of like, hey, you can go to conferences, but then you want to get more leverage out of that, speak at them.
Yep.
So that's been where a lot of them are coming from. And then finally, outside of referrals of partners, the other place that they come from is a Facebook group. And the Facebook group refers us a lot of people. And it's a small group, it's like 1,500 people, but it's enough consistency where that carries us and keeps us going.
Is that your Facebook group or you just joined one that
No, I just joined one. It was
that's
the
awesome.
same one that I joined when I started this business. It's the same one I leveraged where I added them as friends and I contacted them by direct message, which I know everyone talks about how stupid that is. It still works for us today. We just be
Sure.
real. I think the key is like being real, being a real person, not being like, "Hey, how are you?" Like you don't know this person, don't ask, right? Just tell them why you just jumped in their inbox. So yeah, that has helped us a lot. And no, we don't own it. Ultimately, we don't own it. We started one and that one sucks compared to the real one.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's like having a fish or a plant. You continually have to feed it and invest in it. It's like
Oh yeah.
it's a lot of work. So
Yeah. Or I
uh
pay $400 a month and I get access to this one. So I'll take
it
it
yeah, all day, right?
all day.
Curious about your sales team. So you were the first salesperson in the company, but when did you hire your first salesperson? At what point in the company did that happen?
I believe I was 2 years in 2019, 2020. I'd have to double check, but I believe I was 2 years in. I was about $1 million in revenue. And that is when I hired my first salesperson.
Okay.
And that first salesperson started in November. Now I kind of want to find out when it actually happened. But yeah, so I hired that person. We were doing, we were consistently doing sales, hired them, and out of the gate, they did really well. But I think we were about $1 million in revenue. 2021, November of 2021 is when we hired them. So we were doing about $1 million that year. And then in 2022, we doubled the business from that first hire.
Wow. What about that first hire made it just such a good outcome?
Good question. So that person that I hired, I had already known them because they were like a friend of a friend, which worked
Okay.
well. In my opinion, why it worked well is I got them around the vision that we can sell the dream. It'll be easy to sell marketing if we sell the dream. But if we really care about how to do, you don't need to be an SEO expert, but if you know how to really talk about SEO, if you know how to really go, hey, this may not be for you right now because you're not in a good spot, and really have a much more deeper conversation about business, cash flow, how to track the return on investment. I got this person to really align with that, and they out of the gate aligned with that. Plus, they had a ton of experience. That like their whole career was in sales. He was a little bit older, whole career was in sales, and so that I think together he knew how to sell, and then he cared about the clients he was selling, and trying not to sell the dream. You combine those together, and it did great.
I love that. So, in your mind, what is more important of these three different types of attributes for hiring a salesperson? They come with sales experience, they come with product experience, i.e., SEO, or they come with vertical experience, which is movers in your case. Which one's the most important?
I think in my opinion, I think it's got to be sales experience. I'm talking out of an agency life, right? We have so
Yeah.
many things we've got to do. It is so critical that your agency continues to sell. They have to know how to sell. A great salesperson can learn agency
Yes.
life. They can learn
That's
SEO.
right.
They can learn how to talk SEO really quickly. You
Yeah.
cannot spend your time training them how to do sales.
Yeah.
And when they have to be trained on how to do sales, you slow down everything else. So if they know how to sell, a good person can take anything and within 14 days be ready to go. And that's been
Yeah.
my experience with every good salesperson we've ever hired. 14 days or less, they're making their first sale, and it's seamless. So
Yeah.
that's my opinion. They have to know
Yeah.
sales.
I've seen
What do you find?
Oh,
You
yeah, no,
answer.
I've
What do you,
seen well, so I've seen in the real world, agencies who are trying to get out of founder-led sales, they'll take an account manager who was very successful in that role, is kinda getting bored, elevate them to sales. The good thing is that they know a lot about the product. The bad thing is they never ask for the sale.
yeah. They never ask for, and they almost know too much about the product.
Right, right. They go
Yeah.
deep into product land and they
Yeah.
overcomplicate the sale.
In fact, it's funny because we just had an anyone in the United States and Canada that's part of our team. We flew them all in, and
Nice.
we got into a 1 hour session of like, where do we need to get better? What are we struggling with? And my salesperson was like, full transparency, I'm walking out of this because I know that we do a good job. I know that but I cannot know the details of the process down to the details because I need to focus on outcomes. I need to focus on what they
Yes.
need as business owners.
Yeah.
And I was like, honestly, seems like a cop out, but have fun. Enjoy your hour break. I'll take it.
Typical sales guy.
100% typical sales guy. But ultimately I do think that's true. I think we can get,
Yeah.
even for me, like I'll jump on a sales call every once in a while and my sales guy will listen to it. He's like, honestly, you should have had me sell it. Cause I care so much about it. I get too deep
Yeah.
and now I'm
Right.
missing what the owner really wants to talk about.
Right. 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 How many salespeople do you have on the group now?
So now we have two people, one setter, and then we have one closer.
Okay.
And we just let go a setter a couple weeks ago, and this new closer that we had, he's been working with us since basically November 1st of last year.
Okay.
Before then, we had two salespeople, two basically like a lead salesperson and a closer, and it ended up being too much, and they were kind of missing, and so I fired all of them and started over with this person. So, but currently one setter, one closer.
And where's the setter getting their list from?
Currently, when we were doing well, like the things that seem to like work, they're from our CRM right now.
Yeah.
So they're they're easier sets in a sense that they don't have to go and get a lead and then figure out the contact information. They're kind of already in there and they're just working the different leads, right? So one
Yeah.
place, one like gold mine, if you're not doing this already, is you go look at all your closed lost deals that you've had over the last 3 years. I mean, that is just, if you have not done it, it's a gold mine. And so they'll start there. We're always working
Yeah.
that in every way. And then we'll go to our CRM because they already know us. They're already in our system. We can invite them to webinars that we do. We can invite them to different things that we are doing in the industry. And so it's already a warmer relationship, although it's still cold because they're not asking for SEO right now.
Sure. And your closers exclusively just focused on appointments and closing?
Yeah, they're exclusively focused on making money and closing money. And
Whatever
when
it
we're
takes.
doing, yeah, and when we're doing well, they're focusing on just looking at their calendar, doing prep work, and then closing, and then having the
Yeah.
call and then closing. Sometimes we get slow, and that person is also doing outbound work and calling and
Exactly.
working the leads and stuff. Yeah.
And I asked that kind of knowing that, I was kind of tongue in cheek. So what are, and I've heard you speak from stage, and when you share about sales, you light up. You love the world of sales. I think it's because you
I
have a
do.
background, and it's an area where you have a strong feel. So what are some metrics that you focus the sales team on, recommend other agencies focus on as it relates to sort of performance in sales?
Yeah, great question. So few things that we focus on. Number one, closed deals, closed monthly reoccurring revenue. It's
Yes.
almost all I care about is how much you can
Right.
do of that. Then you go backwards a little bit. The next KPI we focus on is our close rate, and with that we have a KPI that's like of your close rate, how many ICPs. We define the ICP, but how many ICPs are we talking to? Because you may jump on because we care about the industry. Another downside about being in the one industry, you
Yeah.
can't blow people off because they don't make enough money. I mean, you could, but it doesn't sit
Right.
well all the time. So
Yeah.
you still have to have that 10-minute call, 15-minute call. So I don't care about those. I want to go if they were qualified to buy from us and they're kind of roughly ready, what's our close rate? And I want about 40% to 50%. Personally for me, it means we're bringing in the right people, we're talking to the right people. I don't want too much higher because then it's like maybe we should raise our prices a little bit more. And I don't want too much lower because we're in one niche. We are the go-to company. So like if we're lower,
Yeah.
we're missing something. So I like 40 to 50% as a close ratio. And then I focus on Zoom calls or sales pitches. How many did you actually pitch? Right. And that's kind of key is like a salesperson will always figure out a way to say, "Oh, this person wasn't qualified." And it's like, well, you pitched, man. So if you pitched, I want to know about it because we're counting it. If they weren't
Yeah.
qualified, you shouldn't have pitched.
Right.
And so
Don't
I
waste
will I
time.
will work them on like, hey, who did you how many did you pitch? And then how many did you close? How much
Yeah.
reoccurring revenue? That's like the core three that I focus on right now. I mean,
That's beautiful.
it's not rocket science and it's not complicated. I'm not as good to be able to manage 100 different KPIs, even though I know there's some really good ones.
It's very
Would you
easy
would
to.
you put in any other ones or no?
No, I think, well, from a sales perspective, no. I love close rate. I love obviously new MRR and love new pitches. Like those are foundational, fundamental. Like as long as you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening there, there are other metrics that one should look at, like a founder should look at that fall outside of sales, like new leads, or if
Yeah.
you're doing some kind of content strategy, like how are we measuring success against that, i.e. podcasts or newsletters or things like that?
I would love to kind of hear you on that because one of the things for marketing, because marketing is a fugazi. Every time I hire a
Yeah.
marketer, they're always trying to blend
Yeah.
everything. But one of the
Yeah.
things we're trying to do is basically go, how many core interactions with our company, whether they open an email, respond to an email,
Yeah.
join a webinar, download a lead list, like how many of those people are in this kind of cesspool in the last 60 days, and then to grow that number. But how would you
Yeah.
look at it? Because I agree, that's super core,
Yeah.
but I feel like I was always taught marketing to sales is very linear and it feels less linear today, or maybe that's just me.
No, it would be great if someone came in from a Facebook ad, filled out a form, got a sales
Yeah.
call, and then bought, right? Wouldn't that be
Oh
nice?
yeah. It'd be
You could
beautiful. I
attribute
would love it.
Facebook is the source, got the salesperson gets the commission. The reality is that the way people shop today is, let's say in your industry, they may have never heard of you for whatever reason. They go to their conference, they see you on stage, and they probably go to their laptop if they're in market and they say, well, who are these rotate digital guys? Like, what are these guys about? They may go to your website, and what they're doing is they want to get to know you. They want to kind of get you know, get to understand, like, what are you about? What problems do you solve? Who do I know that you've worked with before? And that's usually a good time for them to start binging on your content. So when you have a webinar or a webinar series, or you have a YouTube channel or a TikTok feed or a newsletter, that's usually where they go, okay, I know I'm going to be making a change with my agency in the next 20 to 30 days, or 30 to 60 days. Let me check out, let me binge some of this guy's content and see if I like what he's saying. And if you do the right content, which means that it's a blend between SEO and digital strategy and moving, in your case, you have a nice blend of really relevant, high value content where they're learning from you. Maybe they're laughing from some of the stuff you put out, right? They enjoy it. Basically, at that point, they're going to become a sales opportunity. Whether or not
Yeah.
they choose you is up to the salesperson at that point.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very difficult for us now, but one of the things we do is when they hit our website, we do a retargeting ad. But
Nice.
what's funny is we run the same ad. Everyone's like, you don't want that to hit more than twice. We have the same ad running for the last year and a half. But what's funny about it is it's become this little thing that everyone talks about now when they
Is it the
meet me. They're
fire? Is
like,
it the fireplace one, right?
it's the fireplace one. Yeah. You even know it. Honestly, I love it. And it's so annoying. I get it. It's annoying, especially if you've seen it 12 times in the last month. But every time I talk to someone, they're like, dude, I always see your fireplace ad. I always see you talking about the bad SEO versus good SEO. I was like,
Right.
honestly, I'll take the win. Like you're telling me
Yeah,
that every time
absolutely.
I'll take the win. So we
Yes.
run that
Yes.
same thing over and over and over
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. We would get Scorpion is if they came to our website, we'd retarget them. And of course, they would be on the New York Times reading an article, or they'd be on their local, Yahoo page, and then all over our ad would follow them around, and they would get on a call with us eventually, and they'd say, "Gosh, you guys are everywhere! Like you guys are
Yeah.
on the New York Times." It's like, well,
Corey's like,
yeah, we happen
check.
to just remarket with, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So remarketing is very important. It's surprising that more agencies don't do that, because
Yeah.
it's an easy win, I think. But I think to answer your question, I'm not sure if I answered your question about like attribution. And the reality is that buyers go through multiple touch points. It's not linear. It's the opposite of linear. If there was an
Yeah.
opposite, right? It's not.
Yeah.
It's just all over the map. So
Which makes it hard to justify a good marketing person, because then you're like,
yeah,
let's really, because they're like, oh, it's
right,
omnipresence,
right.
Travis.
Well, the way I would think about it is, as relates to that comment, is there should be some way for people to get to meet you anonymously, i.e., newsletter or webinar, where they could just kind of get a sense for you. You don't have to do everything, in my opinion. Like you could do a couple of things really well. For example, newsletter. Newsletter may be your jam, and that means that you really pour in some good resources into creating a newsletter that's extremely valuable. Where they're like, I cannot wait till Wednesdays because I'm going to get their newsletter. I'm going to open it and I'm going to get some value out of it. Or it's a webinar series, or it is a podcast. The challenge that people get into, and this happens a lot, is they try and do a little bit of everything. They have a podcast, newsletter, YouTube channel, so on and so forth, and all of it is kind of good, not great. And that's where it's easy to ignore, and that's where you struggle a little bit.
Yeah. And you've got a great podcast, and you pour obviously your heart and soul into it. So then it's
Yeah.
like, I bet you've got people coming to you being like, hey, I want to work with you. And it's because of your podcast,
Yes.
because you're
Yes.
caring so much about it.
What I find is people, well, this is a podcast and they read the book, right? So they do both. And on sales calls, it's the best when they get on sales calls, they pull up, they bring up the book in the camera. They say, I read this book and it was awesome. That's usually a big buying signal. So I'm a fan
That's
of
amazing.
agencies writing books. Have you written a book yet?
No, we're about to launch one though. So
Okay, good.
it's not
Is
going
it
to be
about
as great.
SEO and movers?
Yeah, it's going to be somewhere close to that. That's right.
Okay, good.
It's more about the prettiness and the fake authority. Although I do have real authority. I downplay it. I do have real authority in the sense of like, I do know SEO well. I know how to balance it well as an owner,
Yeah.
and I know it in the moving industry. So I
Yeah.
downplay it because it's more fun to downplay something.
Can't wait to get a copy of the book, by the way.
Yeah, I will. You know what? Just for you, I will sign the copy as well.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. I'll put that up here on my bookshelf. How do you approach sales commission?
I feel like how you approach peace, you know my spot here. So I, generally speaking, pay more to salespeople than I think the average, or what, like we were talking about. I would say that there's a motive going around, at least in the agency space, of find overseas salespeople, find salespeople that work for free and then get paid commission. I tend to go really honestly the way opposite direction. I find really good people that care. Those people who have experience, who have care and want to like get behind something, I have found are people that need a good salary. They need to be like, I need to make this worth my while. And then on top of that, I pay good commissions off of it. And so I pay a good base salary. That's kind of our structure, pay a good base salary because it's so critical to the business. It's such a critical role. And then for our sales commission, we do it like the tax bracket. So if you sell a certain amount of monthly recurring revenue, you're going to get a smaller portion of commission on that. And so as you grow that commission, as you grow that monthly sale, that incentivizes urgency. And then what we basically do is basically say, hey, as you get into this bracket, now you're getting 50%. And so we incentivize to get good sales in the month, but we don't de-incentivize a slower month sale. And because we're paying a good salary, they can get through a bad month or two, because the reality is, again, for at least my type of people, right? You're 10 million or less, maybe even 5 million or less. You probably don't have so much sales coming in where it's just like, you have such a good brand, you have so many sales opportunities, you can kind of play the game. You're kind of sitting here going, man, I live off of reoccurring revenue. My business model is reoccurring. And so when they come in, I need to close it. So I pay well, roughly speaking. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's
Yeah.
kind of the general idea.
And what happens if the client churns in 3 months?
We have a clawback clause. And so I've done it before without it, and it doesn't work as well. And so
Yeah.
if they leave within 3 months, I attribute that to a poor sales engagement. So my salesperson is very clear that the right type of people need to be sold. Well, it's easy to tell a salesperson that, right? Sell the right people. Oh, of course, Travis, I'll sell the right people.
Yeah.
Well, once their paycheck is affected by it, now they really sell the right people. So within 3 months, 90 days, if
Yep.
that person has a bad onboarding experience, if they're the wrong person, if they stop paying because they don't have the cash flow, all these things, whatever the reason is, if they don't become a client or leave us within 90 days, even if we deem it as like, this is a bad client, like they're just
Yeah.
horrible to work with, they
Right.
lose that commission. So a 90-day clawback is what we do for our sales team. And we track
And
that.
just to be clear, is the commission structured that they get 100% of their commission upon sale, or is there some kind of tail where they're earning commission over time, or how does that work?
Yeah, good question. So we don't do overtime commissions, mainly because it's not their job to keep a client. Their job is to bring in new clients. And so we want to incentivize on bringing in new clients and the right clients. So we look at that
Yeah.
3-month window. We don't do recurring. Also, it's a nightmare to track that every
Yeah.
single month. I can't imagine doing that. But yeah, we do not do that. It is basically when they sell, they get it the next month. So if they sell on the very last day of the month, they're getting that paycheck of that commission within like 15 or 20 days. Where if they sell at the beginning of the month, it's taking like 40, 45 days to get it. But no matter what, it's the next month that they get paid on that. And that's it. It's one time, depending on how much they sold that month, it's a certain portion of that very first month. And then they're
Got it.
done. And then they walk away, they make their money, they're happy, and they go on to the next group of people.
Got it. And do you guys include setup fees in your pricing?
I I don't know if you specifically are like pulling this out. I don't know if you talked to somebody, but we actually don't include setup fees. But just like a month ago, we included it because the salesperson was like, look, I'm in sales and I'm selling a setup fee, and sometimes they don't want to pay it. And it's really hard to try to sell it if I don't get a commission off of it. So now we include setup fees on the commission. And so we include basically everything they sell now, they get some kind of incentive on it, and we roll with
Yeah.
it.
My approach is always you want to incentivize the behaviors you want. So if you want them to sell the setup fee, give them a commission on the
And I
setup
do.
fee.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I don't want them to sell really small one-off projects, so we give like very little commission for that.
Good. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just, yeah. Hit them in the wallet. They'll pay attention.
Yeah. The paying the salespeople is a big portion of our commissions and our salary, but I find it so worth it. I find it so worth to have a really good person in there than be churning salespeople, because that's miserable.
It is miserable. And interestingly, the best agencies recognize, and it sounds like you know this as well, that the sales experience of the prospect is part of the product that you're selling. Right. If
That's a
they have a
great way to put
wonderful
it.
sales, yeah, if they have a wonderful sales experience, that's going to give them an idea of how they're going to be treated as a client. If it's a churn and burn sales experience with someone who is only got the commission breath, right? That's going to leave a very negative impression on your business
Yeah.
ultimately.
Well, in fact, it kind of bites you both ways, because you can have a good salesperson that is talking to them all the time, really gets to know their business, does so well. And you have to match that with onboarding and as they become a client, because sometimes we've had clients be like, man, and right now our salesperson's Joey does a great job. Joey's so good. He was asking all these questions. Then they get
Yeah.
on the board. It's like, here's a form, fill out the form. Hey, here's this. It's like, can you call me a couple
Yeah.
times? Can you,
What happened to
and they're
Joey?
like, what happened to Joey? And so we're really working on our onboarding to be like, how do we
Yeah.
meet them right after that? Call them a couple times, call them right after they buy, text them, tell them congrats, send them some cookies. Someone told me that cookies really works well in the agency space. We send cookies now for everything.
That guy's a
It doesn't
brilliant guy.
matter. Yeah, you have increased my marketing budget with purely crumble cookies all over the place.
You're welcome. You're
Yeah,
welcome. You can
thank
tell.
you.
Do you productize your services? Like, do you have like a good, better, best in the sales process, or is it more of a consultative kind of based on what you told us? This is what the plan is, or somewhere in the middle?
I would argue now it's probably a little bit more in the middle than it used to be.
Okay.
The last 3-4 years, basically, we've had like bronze, silver,
Right.
gold,
Right. Yeah.
diamond, platinum,
Yeah.
the whole thing. And what we, at least in our industry, for us personally, what we have
Yeah.
found is it became restrictive. And so what we ended up doing was we broke down what we actually do with the client, right? We have a focus on Google business profiles, right? Well, a company can come to us with 10 different Google business profiles, 4 of them needing a ton of work, 5 of them needing like no work, right? Or whatever. And so, and then their SERP results are really good, but, or whatever and so what we've done is instead of saying, go, here's your one productized service, you pick and choose. We've actually broken it out and said, all right, what's your budget? What is the need? We have a baseline and we have what's included in the baseline. And then it's like, do we want to be aggressive SEO on this local Google business profile? No, not so much because it's got good results. Let's go moderate or none, right? Okay, what about this one? And then based off that, a pricing comes out of it. And so we have found 2 things to come really nicely from that. Number one, people actually spend more money with us. Our average ticket has gone through the roof, not through the roof.
Beautiful.
It's gone up because we're giving them the freedom to spend what they want to spend, which has been amazing. And 2, we
Yes.
ultimately can do more with their money. Where beforehand we were taking their money, restricting the productized service
Right.
to
Into these prefab
Hey, yeah.
buckets that, yeah.
Yeah. And then we're almost wasteful. I wouldn't call it wasteful, especially if a client's listening, but we can do more now. So yeah, so
Sure.
it's kind of in the middle where we don't productize to the extreme, but we don't just be like every business is custom, even though the execution is custom. So we customize the execution. You're like,
That's so
Travis,
cool.
that
I
was a
love that.
long story for not that much information here.
No, I think that's great. I think the default in the industry that we live in is good, better, best. And then
Yes.
the challenge, of course, is that the mover, or whatever business you're selling to is in a position where they have to make an important decision about their business without understanding the nuances between the bronze, silver, and gold. And so
Yeah.
I always recommend doing a single solution that's based on what they told you, like the outcomes that they want. You want these outcomes, it's going to be this price, and this is the scope.
Yeah. I, again, wish I would have talked to you 2 years ago because I wish we
Yeah,
did this sooner.
I know. Where was I?
Where have you been, man?
We're together now, so it's all good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the other thing I would say too, something like if you're listening, you're trying to get this implemented, you're doing sales. One of the things that we've really actually worked on communicating is cash flow. So we really talk to them probably more than we ever have before. Like, what are you willing to spend? And everyone always answers the question by going, well, as long as I get a return, I'll spend whatever.
Right.
And you really have to
Endless.
endless amounts. It's like, so we actually fight that in the sales call now. And we go, great. Well, here's how SEO works. What can you afford right now? You can always spend more with us. We're always going to be here. What can you afford now? Can you afford spending for 9 months without getting a return? Not saying you won't get a return, but you need to go into this relationship where you can afford this. So where are you at? And we end up able to get a range of what they can do, and then we start there, and then we can always upsell later and do the whole thing.
Oh,
So talking
that's
about
so
business
good.
cash flow is so good
Yeah.
in our sales process now.
Yeah, that also prevents or limits buyer's remorse, where they were like, "God, that Joey guy got me got me signed up for this thing. I can't even afford it. How did that happen?"
Exactly. Right. And that is where you have a nightmare of an agency to fulfill, and then they're gone
Right.
in 4 months.
Right, because they don't have patience to see it all work.
Yeah.
We are running short on time, Travis, and this is a great conversation. We could probably have part 2, maybe in a part 3. Maybe we'll do a pop-up session in San Diego.
Yeah. Inside the airplane.
Yes, in the air. Let's go.
Yes, we should. Too good.
How long would it take to fly from where you are in Arizona to Los Angeles?
To Los Angeles is about 2 hours to
Okay.
Los Angeles.
All right.
San
All
Diego,
right.
about an hour and a half. So when we're in San Diego in a month and a half, no, yeah, month and a half,
About a month and a half. Yeah.
it'll take me about an hour and a half to get there.
Awesome. Couple final questions as we wrap up here. So, what would be your parting advice to either the younger version of you that was just starting out, who's looking to scale, or the agency founder who has been struggling with scaling and they just need some good advice? Like, where should they go? What should they do?
I don't know how tactical or inspirational, but I would say one thing I would say to my old self that I wish I knew a little sooner is really think through how to stop checking boxes for agencies. Again, you're an agency owner, how to really start thinking about how to stop checking boxes and how to create value for your customer and your client. And I get
That's
that is
awesome.
so like, oh yeah, you say that, but really sitting down and be like, what does the customer need? Talking to the customer, be like, yes, you need SEO. Yes, we're gonna do that. But what do you need specifically? That opens up a much more intimate conversation. You start learning what they need and you start becoming more valuable. We launch things now, not even to add to our monthly reoccurring revenue, but just to add. So we just have a little bit more value to them. We have a little bit more grasp on them working with us. So really, really sitting down and be like, what are we doing that's just checking the boxes and how do we actually move forward from that? Because we've drastically changed in the last year how we do SEO by thinking, how do we not just check the box of on-page work and how do we really execute real value and measure that value for our client? So I would argue
I
that
love
high
that.
level, that would be a great way that I wish somebody told me 3 years ago to
I
me.
love that. And I would encourage folks to apply that to their own sales and marketing as well. Don't just have a blog or have a podcast and check the box. Like what are we doing to actually provide value in the market?
Exactly. Yeah. Again, how do we, you could argue because we are limited, how do you do less better? Right? As one of my mentors says this, how can you do
Yeah.
less but do it better and get better
Yes.
results and better outcomes? Yeah.
Final question. What's your motivation?
A lot of motivations. I don't like working for people. I like being the boss. So that's motivating. I like flying airplanes. They're expensive. That's motivating. And I really do like what I do. And so to be able to create a life, to be able to go, I want to do something. I want to be home with my family. I want to fly airplanes. I want to own a hangar. I want to, whatever the case may be, to be able to just kind of pick and choose and go leveraging the value of business. I love that. So that really does motivate me, is that freedom to be with my family if I choose, go focus on something else. I love business. And so business is part of my motivation. I love helping people. So I think a real honest answer is the freedom to kind of do what I want, whether it's buying something, whether it's being with my family, whether it's being more involved in something, or the freedom of just being the boss and not having to, tell somebody when I'm going to come to work or whatever. So
That's awesome. Well, I want to congratulate you on all the success in building up a business that has created that freedom that you're looking for, obviously, and continues
thank
to
you.
do so. Where can people reach out to you and find out more about you, maybe connect?
Yeah, I'd say two places. Instagram at Travis Weathers would be a great place to find me. And then travisweathers.com. I'm trying to start posting more valuable, very tactical. I'm not very inspirational. I'm very tactical like things that you can do, and growing a group of community of agency owners that want to kind of cut through the noise and the BS of agency space and really sit down, be better business owners, make better foundational business decisions. So
Beautiful. That's
yeah.
awesome. Thanks for joining.
I appreciate you having me. It means a lot. You're
Yes.
doing such good impact in this community, and I really appreciate that a lot.
I appreciate you as well. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Deep Specialization Podcast. If you haven't checked out my best-selling book, Anyone, Not Everyone, you can download the audiobook for free right now by going to anyoneNotEveryone.com. That's anyoneNotEveryone.com. And finally, a special thank you to our sponsor, E2M. We'll see you in the next episode.